Hi, this is Jeremy. I'm a gangstalking target here in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The next little series of videos I'd like to do is about the sound campaign, trying to get to the heart of it, try to explain, do my best to explain to people what it's like, because like a lot of the techniques that the gangstalkers use, it's extremely difficult to show people what it's like. And like the sound campaign, like the sleep deprivation or anything else, it's very easily downplayed or dismissed. So just like last time with the sleep deprivation, I guess it would be the best for me to start off with a scenario. In this case, I want to do 3 short scenarios just as an introduction to the sound campaign and to get people to hopefully understand what it's like. This first one is actually based on something I saw recently, and as soon as I saw this, I wrote it down because I knew it would be perfect to use as a way to help explain what the sound campaign does in gangstalking. Let's imagine that we see a young man in his early 20s, pretty well dressed, in a convertible car, and he's at a stoplight. He's the first car at the intersection of the stoplight, and the light turns, but before the light is even green for a second, the lady behind him just suddenly starts blasting the horn. Let's say that, we're not judging her in this case. We're just saying maybe she's impatient or she's late for work or whatever, but that light ain't even green for a second and she's just blasting it. And we see that this guy is affected by this. His neck flushes red and it rises up through his face, and his heart rate goes way up. He's almost overcome with emotion, with a cocktail of emotions, including anger. And he doesn't move. He hits the brakes of the car, and looking in the mirror back towards this lady, he just gives her a piece of his mind. It just starts going off on her. And we can fill in the details there and the exact words that he said. We can fill that in with our imaginations. And then finally, after 20 or 30 seconds, he angrily puts his car into gear and takes off, with the impatient lady following very close behind. Now I want to just take a closer look at this very, very short scenario. First of all, pointing out that, well, looking at this guy's reaction, by the way, it's something that wouldn't surprise you, right? It's something that we've all seen before. And even though we may not agree with the way that he handled it, it's something that's not out of the ordinary, especially considering the way that this lady just blasted him with that horn. I mean, she didn't wait even a second, But I want to pay particular attention to his reaction. And I actually want to pose a question here, which may seem actually to be completely unnecessary, but I promise you that for my purposes it is. I want to ask, why did he get so upset? Why did what this lady did, or the noise, why did it upset him? Why did his heart start beating really fast? And, why was he overcome with emotion, including anger? It's just a noise. I mean, anyone who lives in a city or pretty much anywhere where there's traffic is familiar with horns beeping. You hear horns beeping all the time. You hear fire engines, jet engines, in the course of our daily lives. We hear plenty of sounds. Why should this guy be so upset? You know, in this case, why should he be so upset if it's something that we hear every day? Could it be perhaps because it was so unexpected and so loud? You know, and also we might wonder whether or not it was the way that the lady did it, which also made a big difference. It was the aggressive quality of, you know, the way that she beat this horn. You can almost say it was unnecessarily cruel. Well, let's leave that scenario where it is right now and just think about that. We're going to come back to that later. I got a second little scenario, by the way, to try to explain the sound campaign and make people understand what it's like. Let's imagine, you know, a different young man, also in his early 20s, recent college graduate. He's working in an office near his hometown. And he's been reading these websites lately, you know, and he's fascinated by websites that promise to help you learn how to drive people crazy and how to engage in psychological warfare. And he decides, you know, I want to try this at work tomorrow. I want to see if it works. There's this one lady, you know, she's so uptight and she's so easily offended by everything. I want to try it on her. So, going off of this website, he chooses a sound. He downloads this tone for his phone, which is basically sounds like a church bell ringing. The next morning, he goes in early to see where she parks. He makes sure that he pulls up pretty near her when she finally does show up, 5 or 10 minutes before they've got to be into work. She doesn't realize that he's there waiting for her. He strikes up a conversation with her on the way in the door and makes sure, while he's doing this, to hold up the phone and to set off this bell ringing noise. And at this point, she might be taken aback for a second or two, but she just keeps talking and they go into the building. But it definitely sticks in her mind as something very strange that he suddenly holds up the phone and does this. She goes in, she gets set up, maybe pours a coffee. She sits down at her desk. She's sorting through the emails from perhaps the weekend. And all of a sudden she hears the bell ringing noise again. It's the man, it's our young man, and he's standing behind her with the phone, making this noise right in her ear. Now at this point already, just the second time, it's getting a little bit weird. But she still can't quite react, and she still can't quite articulate that something is wrong. Let's say a short time later, she has to go to the bathroom or something, and she leaves her office and she's walking down the hall, and there's our same young man who loves these psychological warfare websites. He doesn't greet her, he doesn't say a word to her. At this point, she's kind of put off by him, and as she passes him in the hallway, the exact moment that she passes him, he sets off this noise again. Now, this is really starting to well, maybe she doesn't even know yet, but it's starting to affect her. She goes into the bathroom, does what she has to do. You know, by the time that, you know, we fast forward a little bit and we see her washing her hands, looking in the mirror, perhaps by this time she's forgotten. You know, who knows? And, you know, she checks her face for whatever reason, maybe fixes her makeup if she wears that. And she goes to exit the bathroom, and as soon as she touches the door and pushes it open just a little bit, she hears the sound again. The young man is standing right outside the bathroom and makes this sound. Now I'm going to cut short the scenario here because you could go on and on with this. But I think that we would all agree that under normal circumstances, especially if our lady in this scenario is not a targeted individual, we wouldn't be surprised if this guy ended up in the manager's office very soon. And we wouldn't be surprised if the manager was saying something to him like, what are you doing? This is a workplace. We don't harass people here. There are serious consequences for this type of behavior. Either you quit doing this now or you don't have a job. We can easily imagine, a manager sitting this guy down, and it wouldn't be out of the ordinary if he was given an ultimatum just after doing this a few times, that he was given an ultimatum that, look, if you don't stop doing this, you're out of here. You don't have a job here. Now, like I did with the first scenario, I'd like to go back and ask a seemingly strange question, which is, why did this bother her? Because if you compare the first and second scenario, this time the sound is not even loud. Well, let's say, for the sake of argument, it's not even, as loud as the average person sets their phone notifications at. The whistling noise that you hear with the iPhone. Let's say it's not even as loud as that. Well, so what is she upset for? Because in the first one, just the sheer volume of the noise, the unexpectedness of the noise, caused a physiological reaction in our young man in the convertible. But now this time around, it's not noisy as noises go. So what is it that upset her? Well, I guess first of all, this guy's following her around the workplace. He's showing up wherever she goes. And secondly, he's literally taking a sound that she doesn't want to hear, which bothers her, and he's shoving it right into her ears. Next video, I got one more scenario as kind of a prep to discussing the sound campaign, and I'm also going to draw some conclusions from all three little scenarios.